Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Dhruv Dhawan. I'm going to be moderating this special panel that we have prepared for you guys today. Just a little bit of background about myself. I'm a former MBA at Michigan Ross 2019, and during my time there, I founded a company called B School Travel. The MBA experience is all about international immersions, students from all over the world, and global business. And at B School Travel, that's our focus. We work with the top tier business schools, student organizations, administrators to plan academic, cultural, and professional travel and experiences around the world. And today I'm joined by 5 MBA students from different South American countries who are now at top business schools in both the US and Canada. And we're going to be talking a little bit about their experience, both when it comes to being in your shoes and applying for their MBAs, but also what they're experiencing now on the ground with classes, recruiting, and everything else you want to know. So with that, I want to first thank everyone that's participating today. We're really excited to have you, and just get started by introducing ourselves, talking about where you're from, what your pre-MBA experience was, and what your post-MBA career interests are. So why don't we get Alejandro to kick us off?
Sounds good. Thank you, Drew. I appreciate you having us here tonight. So hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Alejandro Jones. I'm originally from Mexico, but I've been living in the US for the last 4 or so years. I was actually, currently I'm enrolled at UT McCombs School of Business down in Austin, Texas. But before moving to Austin, I was in Boston, Massachusetts, working for MIT Sloan executive degree programs. So my background is in education, and happy to talk to anyone that is coming from that specific background.
André, can we have you go next?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Drew, thanks for hosting us. Thanks for the invitation from B School Travel and GMAT Club for hosting this. Happy to be here. My name is André Azevedo. I just graduated from Yale SOM in June 2020. I'm now back in São Paulo. I'm a lawyer, and I think I was the only lawyer in my class that wasn't switching careers. So yeah, I do white collar crime law, which is basically business crime. That's my option for a business school. But yeah, happy to be here and hope to be of help.
Great, thanks.
I can go next, Drew. Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Roberto. I'm also from Mexico. I was living in Mexico City before my MBA. I'm doing my MBA at Top Business School. Very happy. I'm a second year now. I took stock because of the general management focus and the immersive experience. And after talk, I'll be joining Amazon Finance role in Seattle.
I can go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Rodrigo. I'm from Brazil. I'm going to start my second year MBA there. Like Andre, I was a lawyer, but I actually did my MBA, like he said, to switch careers. I'm pursuing an investment banking career. I did my summer at Credit Suisse, going back full-time next year, and happy to be here and hope we can be helpful to you guys.
All right, so that leaves me with me. So hey, everyone. My name is Miguel. I am from Colombia. So before coming to Rotman, which is in Toronto, I was living in Bogota. So a little bit about myself. I'm an industrial engineer, worked for a couple of years in the steel industry back in my country. I also had some minor exposure to tech startups. Part of the reason why I chose Rotman was, the location, a hub for tech and many other industries. I entered Microsoft, and I'll be returning full-time next year.
Great. Thanks, everyone, for the intros. And everyone's anxiously waiting to learn more about your journey. So why don't we start with the application process? And, one of the most important questions that comes to mind when you're starting the MBA journey is, where to apply to. So wanted to get some insights into how you guys decided your list of schools they were going to apply to. Roberto, it'd be great if you could kick us off.
I can. So I knew what I wanted before applying. I knew I wanted a general management program, fixed curriculum the first year. I didn't want to be picking subjects the first year. I kind of wanted people to hold my hand and tell me what I should learn. So I wanted that in one part. And the second part was I come from a big city. I was working in Mexico City for 4 or 5 years before coming to talk. And for my MBA, I didn't want that because I knew that I was going to go to a big city after my MBA. So for my MBA, I wanted a smaller city, more close-knit community. So I focused on those schools. And after those two thresholds, it was kind of easier for me to limit it to a few selected schools.
I can speak a little differently. So basically, what I did and what I actually advise people to do is to cast a wide net. So apply to as many business schools as you can. So you can leverage the applications that you have and the offers. I also come from a big city. Differently than Roberto, I actually wanted to pick those classes that I actually wanted to engage. I didn't want to take classes in subjects that actually I don't see that those helping me in my after the MBA, which is kind of dumb if you think, but because everything is helpful. But that was my mindset. So basically, for me, it was basically going to a school that allowed me to pick the classes that I wanted. That was the closest to my industry as possible. I'm doing investment banking. I'm at NYU Stern, which is in New York City. So that was my my mindset when applying to the business schools.
I can chime in. So yeah, I actually enrolled when I was enrolling on the application process. I already had a daughter and I was married, and things wasn't so easy. I don't know how many of you are in the same situation, but I have to juggle the like a full-time job and the application process and everything, and of course the family and this. Right now I can see how this impacted not only my choice for the school, but many of the peculiarities of the path I chose. So I didn't want to stay on the big city also because of the kids, and now I have two kids, one 7-year-old, one 3-year-old, and my wife. So we picked the cities together. I also tried to cast a wide net, but following these concerns, the family concerns, and of course with the law background, and of course sticking to law after graduation, I tried to kind of marry the business curriculum and also the law school curriculum. So of course this was important to me, and being able to pick elective classes from other schools, this was determinant for me.
Great, thanks for sharing. As you guys can tell, there's no real one-size-fits-all solution here. You have people looking at different curriculums, different cities, where they want to be after their MBA, as well as their family situation. So really, these are just some of the things to start thinking about, and that helps us transition to the next question. Once you identified this list of schools that you're going to be applied to, how did you really do more research on each of these programs? Was it heavily dependent on online research by yourself? Did you network with students? It'd be great if you could walk us through some of that process. And why don't we start with you, Alejandro?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Dhruv. Yeah, so I actually knew McCombs first when they came to Boston, Massachusetts. They had a little coffee, intimate chat downtown. So I decided to go. When I was doing my research, it was like an hour. We had coffee together, and it was pretty good. I used to work in admissions, so for me, it was really important to connect with the admissions people from the different schools. So I fed the connection right away. So that was one. Number two was definitely talk to as many students as you can, either first, second, or alumni from different schools. Because I cannot emphasize this enough. You're going to be there for 2 years. It's going to be a lot of money, right? And you just cannot be in a place where you're not going to be happy, right? So you have to make sure that you fit in the culture. And so, yeah, talk to as many students as I could, and it worked out.
Yeah, guys, I can add to that. There's a big component which is online. There's also a huge component which is in-person MBA fairs. There's a bunch. Like, I was in a big city, so being in Bogota, you have a lot of different options for MBA schools that come and host different events, and you can easily engage with students, the admissions people. So there's a bunch of resources. Even GMAT Club, right, has a lot of resources. So I would say it's a combination of everything. Don't limit yourself to just one channel, but expand yourself. talked to a lot of students. I remember I applied to schools in Europe, US, and in Canada. Rotman was the only one. And I had some friends who did their MBAs in these different locations. So it's always a great insight. I guess, talking to students for me was a great insight, because the student tells you, the real, the good and bad, right? Like, they're a little bit more honest, versus if you talk to, the admissions person, well, they're going to say good things, but the students are going to give you real feedback. So for me, that was great. And then another important consideration for me was the post MBA, right? So, don't consider the MBA as a 2-year program and that's it. Like, it's not isolated. Consider it as, okay, your MBA should be a bridge to what you want to achieve afterwards. So that was my train of thought for me.
I think you're on mute, Roberto.
I am, sorry. Adding a different perspective really fast, and I agree with talking to students, but I also agree that there's a lot of information online, so you should definitely research that info first. Like, know if you have a list of schools, definitely get into that website, check all the sections, right? There's a lot of info there. There's also some PDFs in some other MBA websites that have like 60 pages describing that school. Because I think that the smarter and informed you are when you talk with a current student or an alumni, you can ask smarter questions, more specific. And me, represented admissions for Talk Now, when I'm interviewing students and I talk a lot to perspectives, I can definitely identify how some people have made their homework before talking to me, and also have questions that I can help them a lot more with, instead of a question that they could just have read about it if they would have done it. Right? So just throwing out there too.
Another thing that I think is super important, if it's possible, is to visit the school, because at least in my perspective, I think the schools here, I don't know in Europe or in Canada, but I think it's the same. They are super different in terms of the culture, in terms of the the campus. The campus, like Tuck is completely different from Stern, that doesn't have a campus, but from Yale and from other schools. And I think that's the best way to assess if you have fit with that school, and to actually create your list. Because once you if you look only at the rankings, you can create a very good list, but you're still going to be based on a very cold factor. If you actually go to the school and you speak with the people in person, and if you have the opportunity, you take a class, you audit a class, I think that's the best way to feel how your next 2 years are going to be. And on top of what Alejandro said, you want your experience to be the best. And I think the best that you can make is out of class. The classes will be probably, across all schools will be probably the same. So the network that you're going to create, and the people that you're going to meet, and the place that you're going to be, I think that's the most valuable.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. I really appreciate it. Similar to Rodrigo, I'd love to hear if anyone else visited campus and how that affected your application, as well as, talking to the students. It, of course, is important in assessing your own fit with the school, but how do you think that deeper level of research helped you in your improve your chances or odds of getting admitted to this school? So would love to start with Miguel with that.
Yeah, so funny story. I never visited Rotman. Actually, I visited NYU. Didn't end up there. I actually went for a class, right? But all MBA, a lot of MBA schools have that, right? You can enlist yourself for a class and go there and just observe. For me, it was a great experience. For me, NYU was another important pick. I would say going there to the class gave me insights whether I wanted to be there or not, right? Rotman, on the other hand, what it did was pretty much talk to a lot of people, right? Because I did not have the time to go before my application to Toronto because I was working, right? So I could only go to NYU, but I would definitely say going to the school is a huge thing. You get to see the campus, you get to see the people, you get to feel the vibe. You get to, if you can attend a class, definitely go for that. You see a professor in action, you see how the students engage, and you see the material that's being taught. So very, very insightful for sure.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing that, Miguel. And as you guys can tell, research, whether it's online resources, there's tons available on GMAT Club, tons available on the university websites, but definitely the more you learn, more you speak with students, the more informed you are as well to make a decision on your own where you fit, as well as the better you can speak to the fit in interviews. So with that, would love to wrap up the application portion by talking to you guys a little bit about your interview experience and how you prepared for that and were successful and all going to top business schools now. So André, can we start with you there?
Yeah, of course. Yale sends people to Brazil to interview us. So yeah, I didn't have to leave São Paulo. That was nice. Some people like to travel to New Haven. I decided to stay, which I think it was a good decision. Not only I was comfortable there, but also for some reason the director of admissions comes to Brazil just because it's really close to Carnival season. So so he personally interviewed me. I think it was a good interview. I didn't actually get a consultant to help me during the application process. I would definitely recommend people to do it, but it just didn't happen for me. So I was talking to people about it, and one friend of mine and a former an alum from SOM helped me during the process. So I did my prep, but I would definitely recommend a consultant, someone who specializes in that.
I can add a different perspective. As Miguel was saying, I also did not visit schools before applying. I think, again, there's enough information online, at least to decide you on top of the funnel while you want to apply. But I definitely went to every interview that I had to the school. So definitely have that in your pocket so you can spend that money if you want to. Again, it's not necessarily, I'm very glad to hear that André had a great experience not going. But to me, that was the key. They were evaluating me and I was evaluating them. And the interviews were different in many schools. The vibe of the school, the vibe of the admissions, the vibe of the students that I was speaking with, those were different, right? The application is also kind of staggered. Like I focus first on the GMAT. Like nothing would happen if you don't have a kind of relatively good score. So I first focus on that, then focus on the application, and then focus on prepping for my interview. And I think that's a good way of seeing it. That way you're not, like getting noise of, hey, how should I interview in this school if you don't even have your GMAT or GRE ready, right? So I saw it in that staggered kind of like process, and it worked well for me, and I think it works for people too. But again, there's many ways to do it.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, guys. Really great perspective. Again, important, kind of like what Roberto mentioned, is it's not this school just evaluating you. It's always you also evaluating and making that decision, because it is a big commitment, both for 2 years of your life, but also a big financial commitment, as many of you know. But now let's get to the more fun part of the panel and learn a little bit more about the MBA experiences. We have people in big cities. We have people in smaller locations. Miguel in Canada. So would love to just know high level, what has the MBA experience been for all of you? And I think this would be one question that it'd be great if everyone could share a little bit about their school and their city and their experience. And why don't we start with Rodrigo?
Well, so I had a pretty, and I think was unique to everyone that is going to New York City, whether it's Columbia or NYU. I think the experience will be pretty much the same, and it is recruiting to investment banking. The first month, the first semester is pretty tough, to be honest. You're gonna be, Drew mentioned, what the fun part. The first semester was definitely not fun. The first probably 1 month was super fun because we had, our, like, we call it beer blast, which is basically when everyone meets together on a Thursday and drinks until dead, basically. But after that, there was the recruiting process, and that lasted until the beginning of the January the next year. Then the next, I would say, like 2 months were super fun. Were the best months. Lots of events. We were actually able to create the bonds with the people that we are, so our peers. But then the pandemic happened, and we stayed home for 3 months, and then New York City started to reopen. And I think one thing that is very, very unique about Stern comparing to other schools in big cities, and I would mention, Booth or Columbia or any other school that is in a big cities. The people are very collaborative, and people actually engage a lot with one another. So despite we are in a big city and people live in different parts of the city, people actually come together and drink and have fun. So that's I don't know if I actually answered Drew's question, but basically the fun part was after the pandemic, to be honest, or actually after the lockdowns.
I can chime in if you want, because I think I had a different experience than Rodrigo. I'm a first year, so I barely started. I think everyone is a second year. So for me, it was completely different because I just got to Austin, right, and the lockdown was still in place. So we didn't know if we were going to start classes in person or remotely. Right now, how it works is that so I have classes from Monday to Thursday. So within my cohort, we got like split up into two tiny cohorts, and then you get to go either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday to campus. Of course, like there's safety measures. You have to wear a mask at all times. Faculty are also wearing masks. But it is actually kind of nice to have the possibility to go to campus, because I know that some schools around the country, they've gone completely online. So that's pretty nice. Austin is a fantastic city. If you've never been, I completely recommend it. The music scene, I've heard it's fantastic with the ACL, and also great food. If you like Mexican food, it's a great place as well. And well, I can't say enough good things about like the UT campus. It's a big campus, a big square in the middle of the city. So you have access to everywhere in the city. And well, they just built a new building for the business school. So that's pretty sweet as well.
I'll chime in. Again, I think every campus has its beauty. You just have to decide what you want. Like living in New York, going to Broadway whenever. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? Talk, it's really cool. Also, the Upper Valley has its own thing. The experience in the MBA has been great. The beauty about Talk is that it's immersive, and we love saying that word, but it's actually true. It's just like there's nothing else to do in Hanover than us. So you really, really, really have to like your classmates and really hang out with your classmates, because guess what? There's no one else to hang out with. So we are always together all the time. We take classes together. We eat together. We sleep in the dorms. We all go to the same bar on the weekends. We all participate in the same community consulting projects. We recruit for the same companies. Everything all the time together, which is great. You just bond really, really, really good friendships. You also get a lot of the diversity. You get experience with people from all backgrounds, like in all MBAs. But here, you're always with them, right? So everyone really has something to teach you, and I found that really, really cool about my MBA. One other thing that I'll add is that I used to think like the MBA is like color pink and everything's happiness, and it's kind of overwhelming sometimes too. It's lots of things going on. You have to decide what you're going to recruit for. Lots of classes. You have to decide also what class you're going to take, because you cannot take everything. So it's part of normal life just to feel overwhelmed sometimes, but in the net sum or in the aggregate, it's just an amazing experience, and I'm very glad.
Yeah, I'll add to that my perspective. So, Toronto is a big city, more like Chicago, not like New York. So it's big, manageable, very diverse. So one of the things that's been amazing is, the diversity is not only limited to your cohort, but to the entire city. You can take the subway pretty much very easily. You don't need a car. First year is very demanding. Adding to what Roberto said, there's a bunch of things. You're going to have clubs, networking events, assignments, socials, right? Like, it's a bunch of things. So I would, my advice to you would be balance things. Be aware that you cannot do everything. It's humanly impossible to literally attend everything that's being offered by the program. So just choose wisely. A good strategy is also knowing what not to do. So, think about that. You're going to have fun. You're going to make good friends. I would say, in all honesty, there's a pre-COVID experience and a post-COVID MBA experience, right? Because, before March, everything was in person. And then everything migrated online. I guess we're all kind of, navigating this together. First year Rotman is very challenging academically. So you will have to study a lot. I don't know from the other schools, but you don't get electives. So 3/4 out of the first year, you get core classes. After that, you start seeing your electives. but then you create very good bonds. You know, like my friends were from every part of the world. It's an amazing experience. You grow as a person, you grow as a professional. You know, you live in a new city. Other than that, you're just gonna grow and learn a lot, and you're not gonna realize how much you learn pretty much afterwards. It's like, oh my God, wow, before and after.
Yeah. So my experience was it was unforgettable. What I would have to say, well, Miguel put it very nicely. You gotta know what not to do because there's a lot of stuff to to digest. You will not suffer from lack of options. So, um, but I think what was most important for me was like, hey, don't be shy, put yourself out there, enjoy the opportunities to lead, to be there, to participate in clubs or to organize events. And these are the life-changing opportunities. You have the brand name behind you, you have the school to support you. So yeah, for me, this was pretty unique. I was able to connect to pretty good people. This was I think these are things that you take on for your life, and of course, Yale is a small school, so this also helped to bond with people, to get to know mostly everyone from my class, and yeah, New Haven it's a very nice city. It's not as big as any of the big cities, maybe, I don't know, 200,000 people. It's not as small as Hanover, so maybe I wish it was smaller. But I really like the city. Like, you don't need a car for anything. Very restaurants and cultural life, and so yeah, I enjoyed my time there. Like I said, I had my family with me. This also helped me to make friends with people with families. This is the other thing I would add. Picking where to live was probably the most important decision uh, before coming to New Haven. Like, I could have ended in many different places, even nearby towns. I was considering renting houses or yeah, but then I decided I talked to people, to former students, and they said, hey, stay in the university apartments. That's where things happen, where you can meet more people and you're closer to the university. And even though it was a small apartment with two kids, it was the time of our life. We met we people from all over the world, and my best friends now are from Peru and Japan and Israel, and that's great. That was new. This is the type of story you would like to tell people from your MBA. Of course, classes were great. Like, I don't know if it was Rodrigo who said or Alejandro, but yeah, you're gonna have great classes in all of these schools. I mean, they all have great faculty. So I guess what you take is the experiences you make, and of course the people you meet.
Wow, you guys are making me super nostalgic for about my MBA experience. I'm originally from California, and I never thought I'd say these words, but I'm really missing fall and winter time frame in Ann Arbor right now, because truly so many memories and such special experiences similar to what all of you described. So thanks for sharing that, guys. Now, a lot of students, obviously, big part of why we come to MBAs is to career switch or progress our careers. And I know Rodrigo already touched about his recruiting experience, but would love to hear a little bit more about how recruiting has been for you guys. Everything from the networking, interviews, coffee chats, and whatnot. Why don't we start with Roberto?
So I think there is definitely, I guess, three sections of recruiting involved: networking, which includes the coffee chats, the applications themselves, and the interviews. It also gets divided into different types of recruiting. You have the on-campus recruiting, which are most probable on the bigger side companies that have a formal relationship with the school. So they come to the school, they do a virtual, things with the school, and you apply through the school to them, and they will interview you probably at your school. And then the off-campus recruiting, which is more like you're applying for a company through LinkedIn or through a post in your business school, and André is applying also from Yale and etc. Talk has a lot of relationships. There's big tech, there's banking, there's consulting, there's also lots of healthcare, there's PE, VC, a lot of them on campus recruiting, a lot of them on the spring recruiting. In my case, I go back to what someone said before, like the more focused you are, I think the better. The more you know you don't want to participate, then the more that you can just be more focused on what you're doing. Because again, networking takes time. The application, you need to do a cover letter, and then you have to prepare for the interviews, and some of those are technical and different by industry, right? It's also a fair game to try, right? And I have classmates that came with an idea and then applied to something else, and then ended with an internship in something totally different, right? And in the end, everything works out and works out well. So that's, I think, what I will say about recruiting.
Well, I think it's also super dependent on the industry that you're recruiting for. So for banking specifically, it's super structured and it's across all schools. So basically, like Roberto said, it's you have the networking events, which is basically you going to a corporate presentation and you meeting a bunch of bankers, and then you have the coffee chats, which is if you're in New York City, all week long you go to the several banks, you speak with a lot of bankers, ask them to connect you with other bankers, so you meet like 100 people. If you're from outside of New York City, you basically fly to New York City every weekend or every end of week, actually, from like Thursday to Friday. You do all this but in 2 days. And then you have the super days, which is basically you going to that's the actual interview. So you meet, like 4 bankers will interview you across like 4 hours that you're going to spend at the bank. One thing that Roberto said is super interesting is, I think it's super important that you know what you're planning to recruit for, especially if you are targeting either consulting or banking, because those are super structured and time demanding. So if you're trying to, if you get to the school and you say, I'm going to recruit to, banking and also consulting and also, big tech, you're probably not going to get the most successful experience as you could. So if you can be focused and beforehand what you're going to do, I think you're going to get the best of the experience.
I can also chime in what Rodrigo said. If I could add to that, also you're going to be in the core semester for banking and consulting. So you're not only going to have like challenging classes, you're also going to be recruiting for something that is really, really hard. So I think you also have to think about that. And also another thing is you have to think about the city, right? So most likely you're going to have you have to think about what geographic location when you're applying, where you want to stay in some locations. So I think that's also really important. If you really want to go to investment banking, then you go to New York, that's for sure. For me, the recruiting has been a little bit different because every single recruiter move everything online. So as Roberto mentioned, we do have coffee chats and then you have to submit the application, but everything has been completely online. For some people, this is going to be easier because they're just like so good over Zoom or whatever, right? But for some other people that are completely extroverted, it's like, you're lacking that human aspect that you crave. So I think, I don't know how everything's going to look in the next year or so. Hopefully we're not stuck in this virtual world anymore, but you have to consider that it's a possibility that everything's going to continue being virtual.
Yeah, I want to add to that is, I changed industries. I was working in the steel industry, which is 100% manufacturing, and now I'm going to Microsoft. I did my internship in Microsoft. There's a huge misconception that if you want to go into tech, you need to have this previous tech experience. I knew nothing about tech. I just knew I wanted to go to tech. So the change, you can do it. Just make sure your story makes sense, right? Just make sure, leverage your experience to say, hey, I was doing this, and because of that, this is what I want to do, and this is why, right? So make sure the story makes sense. For Canada and Toronto, Rotman has the best relationships with all the top companies you can think of, consulting, finance, very strong. Tech as well, startups, artificial intelligence and AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning is a big space here. The business school, I would say, is going to open the door for you. You're going to get that foot into the door. From that, it's up to you, right? So have a high bar for you, prepare yourself well, do your job, make sure your story makes sense. And you'll see that, things are going to work out somehow if you work hard and you work smart, right? And going back to what I said before, having a good strategy is also knowing what not to do, right? Like, there's no way you're going to do consulting, finance. Like, if you want to go investment banking, consulting, or tech, like, you're going to be, to the limit. So unless you want to go there and extend yourself, just, save your energy for what matters the most, for what you want.
Well, maybe someone else is going through what I went through, so maybe my experience can help someone. I interned for a law firm, which is definitely not what people go to business for. So, but what happened in my view of interest is I got to the CDO and said, "Hey, I wanna find a law firm that will accept me." And they said, "Well, we can't help you with that. Try the career development office from the law school." So there I went. And then they said, "Hey, you're not a student at the law school, so we can't help you." I said, "Man, come on. What am I doing here? I need some help." And no one could help me. So basically it was networking. And what I have to say is, if you're going to like industries where there's not a structured process to go through, and actually they didn't even have a position for me. I ended up getting my internship, but it was like a visiting attorney thing, and it worked great. I had a great experience, but I had to talk to like many people, students from the law school that interned there, attorneys, and even faculty at SOM at Yale that were from this law firm. So it worked for me. What I would say is, hey, don't give up. There's nothing impossible. And even if all the doors are shut on your face, go try, go knock on some other doors, go ask for help to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. As you guys can see, there's a lot of paths you can take, and it's important to stay focused. But just to elaborate on Andre's point there, there is a lot of structured recruitings with companies coming on campus. But I myself wanted to work in travel tech, which is very niche at a startup. And if you want to chart your own path, you just got to go out and network, take some phone calls. All these schools have great alumni networks, and those positions are out there. It's just a little bit more effort from your end, but you guys can make it happen. So with that next question, I know one challenge that international students face comes down to sponsorships and identifying the right companies that will sponsor visas and whatnot. So would love to hear how you guys navigated that, and when you started even thinking about your company list, how that played in. So why don't we start with Alejandro with that one.
Thank you, Drew. Actually, I think probably I'm not the right person because I have a green card. So I would like someone else to take this one.
I'll take it.
Perfect.
Appreciate it though.
At least a talk is very. I assume this happens everywhere. You know which company is sponsored and which ones don't before. So at least for us, we have in the career services this super cool guy who focuses on internationals, and he knows what companies are focusing on internationals. We have data on how many internationals have recruited over the past years, who of them got an internship, who of them were second-year hires, what are they doing now, what are their contacts, both from Talk alumni, but also just internationals from, the different business schools. So yes, as internationals, just by definition that you need a visa, you have a subgroup of companies that you can apply to. I never felt that was a restriction. The things I wanted, companies were sponsoring for that, and more companies are not sponsored. So I think that will be my experience on that matter.
So I'll add to this because I know my situation is very different from the other ones. So guys, Canada is a whole different story. For Canada, you do not need sponsorship. What you do is, the way it works here is, because of your program is a 2-year program full time, you're automatically eligible for a 3-year work permit. Now, this comes from the federal government. Like this is not something that schools has. It's countrywide. So you're eligible for a 3-year work permit upon graduation, which means you can apply for that work permit even if you don't have a job. So what that means is you have an open work permit not tied to any company, and you can interview to whichever company that you want. So that's amazing. So it's not a concern here, I would say. So yeah, FYI, yes, the Canadian market is smaller than the US market. You do have more cities. It's not only Toronto. The big hubs here are Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. The big hub is Toronto for sure from those three, but just take that into consideration.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing, guys. I see we have a few more minutes. So I love travel, and a big part of my MBA experience was some of the global immersions I did, some of the treks with friends, as well as, consulting projects in Peru. So I would love it if you guys can share some of your favorite experiences during your MBAs. And Alejandro, I won't start with you. I know this is unfortunate times, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be back to it school soon. So why don't we start with you, Rodrigo, or whoever would like to share?
If it's traveling, I think I'm not the best person because, well, I was recruiting my first semester, and then we have the GBIs, which is basically school-sponsored travels to a bunch of countries, but because of the pandemic, they were all canceled. So I'm gonna pass that to someone else.
I can answer that. I didn't do as much travel as some of my friends, but I traveled to some places. I would like to point one. I actually, being a Brazilian, I ended up leading a trek to Israel. I don't know how this happened, but it was actually the biggest trek. A friend of mine was leading it with some second years. We were first years, and the second years just jumped out of the boat, and the guy was all by himself with almost 100 people traveling on this trek. And he said, "Hey, can you help me? You've been to Israel before. You know some of the history, some of the sites." I said, "Sure, let's go. Let's do this." And it was, well, I must say, maybe the most enriching experience of my MBA. Once you take one of those leading roles, like at least those 100 people know you, know your name, they know they can rely on you, and you get to know more people, other people beyond your inner circle of friends and cohort, and so it was great. It was amazing. I grew up a lot and learned a lot from it also.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing that. So we only have a few minutes left. Would love to give you guys the opportunity to give any parting words, any piece of advice to the next crop of applicants, or anything you would do differently if you were to apply again. And we can start with Miguel on that one.
Okay, I'll keep it short and sweet. My advice would be enjoy the ride, right? Like, we're always thinking ahead. Like, you got into the MBA, now you're like, okay, but now I need to think of the internship. And then you got the internship, it's like, okay, now I need to think of full-time. Yes, you do need to think about that, but enjoy the ride as you go. The highs and lows. It's a great experience. You're gonna learn a lot, and you're gonna grow a lot as a person. Please go for it, do it. The MBA is a very fun experience.
Super worth it. And I would add network. Oh, sorry, Roberto. Network as much as you can. We come from a different culture. Everyone here is from Latin America, which is basically we rely more on the more the technical side. The US and I think Canada as well. It's super network intensive. So you have to meet people. You have to talk to people. You have to show yourself. You have to show that you know things. And that's the best way. And adding to what André said, I think there's a lot of opportunities for you to to engage in activities and to take the leadership of things and to meet new people. And the best way to do that is actually showing up and actually talking to people. That's the best thing you can do in your MBAs.
I think reflect will be my recommendation. Why MBA? Why now? Why that school? What do you want to do after the MBA? What do you want to do after that thing after the MBA? All those questions you should know the answer. But with reflection, you will know deep down. You will know what school is better for you, if the MBA is better for you. So just reflect a lot. Like I do reflection now too on the things that I'm gonna do. Like next semester, right, or even next weekend, whatever. So definitely reflect about what are your goals, why your expectations, why your horizons, why your restrictions, and just think about that and think about how the MBA and what school will add value to you and get to your goals.
Well, I can go next. What I would say during the application process is start early. I didn't do that, and it was painful. So start as early as you can. Do your best, of course. We're all doing our best, but be aware that there's a great deal of randomness in the process, and it doesn't mean that you didn't do a good job if you didn't get invited or anything to one school or the other. Like Rodrigo said, cast a wide net, and this should work for the randomness part of the thing. And of course, improve your chances, do your homework, and talk to people, connect to people, get to know the school. It can make a big difference not only on your learning experience, but on the life experience you're going to take. So, yeah. What else? Be yourself and get your story straight for the application process. That's what I would say. Getting your story straight is something I wasn't used to do, but it's something now I kind of go back to, I don't know, every 1-2 years. And I always try to look forward now. And this is something that started with the application process. So yeah, don't try to fake it. Be yourself.
Yeah, I could agree with Andre. You just have to be yourself. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. You have to make sure that it's a right fit for you, because if you're just looking at rankings, right, like and what people recruits there and all that, it could be that it's not a right fit for you and you're just not gonna like it, So I think like please focus on the fit. Talk to as many first year, second years alumni as you can, and also just do a bunch of research online, as Roberto was saying. There's a lot of resources out there, and especially right now that COVID is clearly not helping, and a lot of schools are not doing anything across the country and in some other countries. So just do your research, get your story straight, as André said, and just be yourself, and it's gonna be fine.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. With that, I'm gonna close the panel, but I want to thank all the panelists again for sharing all your valuable insights, all your experiences, and I'm sure all the viewers found this super helpful, and it's gonna help them as they proceed with their own MBA journey soon. While I end, I've also added a link in the comments section, and you can see it down below on the screen to sign up to learn more about B-School travel. We want to make this, the most of your MBA experience right from the time you start applying all the way to the time you're on your MBA. So please sign up and stay in touch.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.